Hi, Algebra 1 students. Don't tell anybody, but I'm in Mr. Qual's office making this video because I can't find a quiet space today. So, don't tell him I'm in here. Can you see his desk? Ooh, you can't even see his desk. Look at that. Okay. All right, let's get started with today's notes. You in class have been talking about the big race. And the big race is how we kind of wrap up chapter 2. And so you've done heat 1 and heat 2 in class. And today we're going to wrap up the final of the heats. Okay, so we do heat 1, heat 2, heat 3, and then we have the big finals. So you'll do the finals in class, but we need to finish heat 3. And that's what you're going to be doing today. So you need your notes that look like this, the big race heat number 3 notes. And again, if you don't have this, just write it on a blank piece of paper. And so we now have our last 3 contestants trying to make it to the finals. Barbara, Mark, and Carlos, and they participated in this 3rd heat. Barbara thought she could win by cheating. She got a 3-meter head start, even though she only pedaled 3 meters for every 2 seconds. Mark, he was not a cheater. He started at the starting line, and he finished the race 20 meters in 5 seconds. Meanwhile, Carlos rode his tricycle, and we just got the equation for them. So nice. 5 over 2x plus 1. All right, so you're going to work through these questions, and then at the end of the video, I'm going to show you some answers so you can check your work. Again, guys, it's really important that you try this on your own. If you just go to the end of the video and look right at the answers, it's not really going to help you because you're going to be taking a short cycle on this in just a couple of days, and so you got to be able to do it by yourself. So make sure you're trying these by yourself. All right, let's take a look at Barbara. And we know that Barbara here, and I'm going to get some yellow, she got that 3-meter head start. Well, we found out in class that that represents our B, or our starting point. That's our y-intercept. Then we found out that she pedaled 3 meters. Okay, remember, that's her change in y for every 2 seconds. That right there is her change in x. So we have everything that we need to create our line. Okay, remember, okay, when we create the equation of a line, we need the m and the b. We need what's our growth rate, or what's our speed in this case, and then where's our starting point. So let's go ahead and write out Barbara's equation. So y equals, our change in y is 3, our change in x is 2, and our head start, the cheater that she is 3. So her equation is 3 over 2x plus 3. Okay, now let's take a look at Mark. So Mark started at the starting line. Well, that also represents a y-intercept. It just represents a y-intercept of 0. He started at 0, 0. That's what that means. Okay, now let's take a look here. He finished in 5, oops, sorry, let me erase that line there. He finished 20 meters. So that is that change in y. So here's his change in y, 20 meters, and then here is his change in x in 5 seconds. Okay, so let's write out Mark's equation. Start off exactly the same way, y equals, and he is now went 20 meters in 4 seconds. Okay, times my x, whatever the time is, that's what I'm going to put in the time, plus 0. Now, I often write the plus 0 just to remind myself that I'm starting at the origin. I'm starting at that 0, 0. But be careful here, and this is going to be true of everything that you do in Canvas. You must always write your slope in reduced form. So 20 over 4, while correct, it's not in reduced form, and when we graph, we need that to be in reduced form. So we have to think about, what does 20 divided by 4 mean? Well, if I reduce it, if I take a divide by 4, I'm left with 5 over 1x, so my slope, oh, I lied. Okay, my slope is, I messed that up, guys. I apologize. I got so carried away with my answer here. You didn't even stop me. None of you stopped me and said, wait a minute. Okay, let's try this again. Mark went 20 meters in 5 seconds. There we go. Again, you have to reduce that. So if I divide by 5, that's where my 4 was. I was all excited to give you guys the answer. So my slope is 4 over 1, or just 4x, plus 0. Now you could have written this just as y equals 4x, which is fine, but I like to keep that detail in as 4 over 1, so when I build my graph, I know what I'm doing, okay? And I know then my plus 0 is my starting point. All right, well, Carlos, well, that one was really easy. They just gave it to us, but let's understand what the 5 halves mean. Think about what does that 5 halves mean for you? Well, it means that Carlos went 5 meters every 2 seconds. And was Carlos a cheater? Yeah, he was. That plus 1 meant he was 1 meter in front of the starting line. He got a 1 meter head start. Okay, knowing this, okay, guys, knowing this, what you need to do is you need to now graph. Turn your page over. Okay, turn your page over and graph these lines. Okay, I'm going to clear out mine. If you need to stop the video back there and fill in those notes, excellent. But we're right here at question B. And on the back of your notes, okay, I'm going to give you a sneak peek here. Okay, that's what you should be doing. You need to graph those. And then you need to answer questions C and D. Who won the 20-meter race? And how did you know? And then when did Carlos pass Barbara? And you have to prove it algebraically, okay? You can use the graph to get the answer, but then you have to prove it. Okay, stop the video here. Graph those 3 lines. Please use different color or different markings so we know whose line is who. Then answer part C and part D. All right, welcome back, Algebra 1. You've had a chance to now graph 3 equations and answer those 2 questions. So let's take a look at the graph. Okay, this is what your graph should look like. Notice how I have my axes labeled here. Kind of hard to see actually right here because it got cut off just a little bit. Let me do my spotlight here. So my Y is meters, and down here it got a little cut off, but my X is seconds. Carlos, Mark, I have in red. He started at 0, 0. He was not the cheater, and he went 4 meters every 1 second. Then when I come over here, and I'm looking at Carlos, he started at 1 and went up 5 every 2. And then Barbara's line, she started at 3 and then pedaled 3 meters for every 2 seconds. Now the race is 20. You're looking at 20 meters. So I come up here to 20 meters and I go across, and whoever's line I run into first is the winner. Because it took Mark only 5 seconds to finish, but how long did it take Carlos? It took Carlos 8 seconds to finish. And then if we come over here, we're talking maybe around 11, 12 seconds for Barbara. So Mark is our clear winner. Now, question D is asking, where did Carlos and Barbara cross? Or where were they at the same point in time? Look at that point right there. Where those 2 lines cross means Carlos and Barbara were at the same point in the race. That means they were tied at some point. All right, so let's take a look at the answers. And here's what those answers could look like. You can see I try to be very clear when I answer these questions. Mark wins the race because he finishes 20 meters in 5 seconds. Carlos finished 20 meters in 8 seconds, which is definitely behind. Now, if you weren't sure how to solve that algebraically, take a look at my algebraic solution. All I did is I went to the graph and I found out where Carlos and Barbara's lines intersected, or where they were tied, and that was at 2 seconds, and that's 6 meters. So in 2 seconds, both of them had reached 6 meters in the race. So all I did was I plugged in 2 for my X. So there's Barbara's equation, and you can see I just plugged in 2. And when I solved it, I got Y equals 6, which is true. In 2 seconds, she was at 6 meters. I then did the same thing with Carlos. I plugged in 2, and in the end, when I solved it, I got 6 meters. So again, Carlos was 2 seconds into the race, and he had reached 6 meters. Okay, make sure you have finished these. You're going to need to bring these to the next class. Hope you've enjoyed these big race questions. I know that I enjoy them. And so next time you're in class, you're going to figure out who wins the finals. It's going to be a showstopper, Algebra 1.